Federico Di Marco with the throw, and it's a really terrible one as he gives it away. Oh, it's an outstanding start, led by Rami. Oh, I've hardly ever seen anything like it. Less than half a minute on the watch, a stunning start. Albania have arrived at this Euro.
Hello and welcome back to the Football Town Show. We've got a very, very special episode for all of you today. And of course, I'm also joined by a very, very special co-host, Jacek. How are we doing?
Hi Adam, I'm doing great. Another fantastic episode ahead of us. So I'm excited as always.
Yeah, and that fantastic episode this time around is Albania. A very, very special country, hosting some important youth tournaments coming up, and also made it to the Euros last summer, so perhaps a rising football nation. But to learn more about them, we've got a very special guest to talk us through this exciting footballing country. So without further ado, let's introduce you to Mino Manoku.
Hello, my name is Mino Manoku. I am from Albania. I'm born and raised in capital in Tirana. My journey in football starts as a kid when I was going to play for Dinamo Academy. I played some years as a goalkeeper, but I didn't reach the professional league. But I didn't let my passion to go out. After some years, I started to work for a football agency as a head of scouting. And after I get some certification and experience in this agency, now I work for one of the most titled clubs in Albania, Partizani Football Club. And also I'm a video scout for West Ham United Women Football Club.
Yeah, Mino, it's a pleasure to have you on here. Seen all sides of football, I would say, from being the goalkeeper in the back, defending the balls, to now working and scouting. So yeah, it's brilliant to have you on here. And Jacek, as a former center back yourself in the streets of Brussels, do you think you and Mino could have formed a good defensive partnership there?
We would literally concede 0 goals, Adam. It would be the true Albanian and Polish wall at the back.
Also, I've been in Warsaw in Poland, and I really like everything there. And also in our features we are tall men, and so we'll be very very good in defensive.
See, Adam, I told you to visit Poland one day.
Yeah, the time will come. The time will come, and I'll be over to Albania surely as well very, very soon. Football takes you all around the world, to be honest. But, Mino, we asked all of our guests the same question. Your very first football memory. It doesn't even need to be exclusive to Albania, but just in general, what is the first memory you have from the beautiful game?
I remember in my hood, all we children was so related together, and one of my friends, his grandfather, was so crazy about Tirana football club, and he took all we children playing in the wood. Come with me, come with me. Today plays Tirana, and I remember with nostalgia because in this modern world, the relation between the third generation and the children is not like strong anymore. And this match was like the first time of me also with my friends going to a stadium in Albania. Also, I go without my my parents asking them, but it was a good atmosphere because Tirana became a champion. Everyone was shouting, louding, yelling, celebrating on the streets. And this is my, that good feeling as a child that I get from going and see a professional match in my home country.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask, to be honest, because what is it like then, also then having played for the academy there, for the club that you grew up supporting and that had such a big place in the city in general, now also still today working for the club? Is that something that you think is even more special than going to a club in Western Europe, for example, or some other opportunities that may have arisen?
My age, I'm 33 years old, and when I was a child, like going to play football, Years ago, Albania was very different. The conditions was very bad. The football pitches was without grass, without rooms to change your clothes. Parents was afraid to let us to go and play in like in winter when it's cold, no conditions. The trainers was like amateur, not certificated, but everything started from there. A lot of young children become a champion from those conditions. They also plays in high levels, but in general, my age was very bad. Now things has changed a lot. When I was a child, the best academy there was Dinamo. It has like a big academy with good uniforms that they put a new area in changing for good, but still the bad conditions. Also, they put that culture in Albania like to bring from academy to the first team. When they become champion in that period, the second goalkeeper was 17 years old. The one striker and two midfielders was like 17 and 18 years old. And after that, Partizani started to do and invest in academy, also Tirana and Lasnia in the north. And years after years, things change, and today's children have new academies, new football pitches, good conditions, scout filming there, clubs working in their channels, in their profiles on social media. Albania Football Federation, they are investing in building new infrastructure. They like every year also with government, the main stadiums are being built. Also, we will host the European Championship under 17, and also with Serbia together, we will host the European under 21 Championship. And this project is bringing new investments in building academies and football pitches. Also, in Albania is a Dura Academy in the city of Durrës. They are, how to say, like a twin from Manchester City, and the trainers are Albanians, but like every month they travel to England when they do courses and everything else. So comparing in my age and now, things are more better.
It's always the same story when we speak about Eastern European countries and the Balkan area. Like the 90s and the beginning of the 21st century was horrible. Like the infrastructure, horrible. And I'm really glad that, well, in Poland it happened many years ago. Well, many years ago after the Euros in 2012. But I'm really glad to hear that Albania is going into the right direction, a better direction than in the 90s, because there is so much potential in this country actually.
Yeah, and I think in Mino's answer there, we almost alluded to what we will be speaking through in this entire podcast. I think there's little snippets there that we'll dive into deeper throughout the next hour, hour and a half. But Jacek, before we jump into some of these topics, what is your first memory of Albanian football? What's kind of the first thing that you remember when thinking of Albania on the football scene?
It was definitely Lorik Čana, so one of the greatest footballers in Albanian history. He used to play for PSG, and yeah, for me he was playing kind of similar position. Like I was playing a center back, but he was a DM, and I always wanted to play in midfield, like in a Lorik Čana role. But then there was another player that I used to like a lot. His name was Erion Bogdani, and he was playing in Italy at the beginning of the 21st century. And maybe he was not a great striker, but he was tall and quite prolific. He played in several Serie A clubs, and back then Serie A was my favorite league. So Lorik Čana and Arion Bogdani were my two very first memories of Albanian football.
Yeah, we've been doing this podcast long enough that it feels like all of your memories tie in with the Serie A as well. It's just such a 90s league, to be honest. Mino, for you as well, are these also heroes from your childhood? I know you and Jacek are pretty much just around the
Yes.
same age as well.
Yes, Rion Bogdani is a good striker. He scored against Juventus, against the Inter, against Milan, even if he didn't reach the top clubs in Serie A, but he contributed as a good ambassador for Albania football in this time. And Lorik Sana is like a legend here. In everything, he is very polite. He is everywhere he goes. People are crazy about him. So he was captain in Marseille. Years ago, I found a video on YouTube when he was speaking to Ribéry and everyone else, and they were like, listen to him very carefully. He has that typical strong character of an Albanian. But also his success was very good. He plays also in England with Southampton. He plays in Lazio. He plays in Galatasaray. He started as a center midfielder, the defensive midfielder, and in his last years of his career, he started to play as a center back.
And it is worth mentioning that Lorik Čana is still a player with the most caps for Albania. So an absolute legend and a great role model for many young Albanian players.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll get to some of the other greats in Albania's history in the next hour, like I said. But one of the most important aspects of Albanian football, I would say, is not even necessarily coming from within Albania, but it's the diaspora. I think we spoke about it in our episode with Morocco earlier on how important the diaspora of talent is for Morocco's national team, and I would say the same thing for Albania as well. The 20th century, like so many nations in Eastern Europe and in the Balkans as well, absolutely changed the population and the way of life there. You had the collapse of the Ottoman Empire at the beginning. You had constant political instability and communist rule. The wars and conflicts that abounded throughout that 100 years has basically seen this Albanian population fractured all across the globe. You see huge diaspora populations in Italy, in Greece, in Switzerland, Germany, the US, Canada, basically all around the world. You have Albanians who are going there. And then their generation of kids are developing into, the footballers that represent Albania's national team today. If we just look at Euro 2024 last summer, only 7 of the 26-man squad were actually born in Albania. It's, I mean, by far and away the biggest diaspora talent that was at that tournament. And you'd have the lights of players like Granit Xhaka, Adnan Januzaj, Zeran Shaqiri, Shotran Mustafi, Brian Gruda, and Nelson Vipa now rising. Players who didn't go on to represent Albania, but all had Albanian blood and the ability to represent Albania in the international circuit. So, Mino, just talk to me a little bit about how important the Albanian diaspora is to shaping the modern football philosophy in the country.
Yes, under 19s, a lot of families from Albania immigrated in those European countries like Italy, Germany, Greece, in France. And years after years, some children who grew and raised up there, they become like stars in for Albania national team. It was a new area for Albania national team, came from Otto Baric. It was a Croatian, a great trainer. He put that modernism in our national football team, and he put the scouts to search for Albanian talents in Europe. And when Gianni De Biasi came, he built a scouting team, and he offer a lot of loose players to and invite them to play for Albania national team. In this case, with Gjergji Shaqiri, Granit Xhaka, they were born and raised in Switzerland. Their family emigrated because the situation in war with Serbia, but they participated with Swiss. But anyway, all the time when they even when they scored, sometimes they make that eagle sign with their hands, and it's a good thing. But diaspora, even now, is the main fabric. Let it say it for national team. Also for 21 years old, also for under 19, and also for under 17. 10 days ago, I was watching Albania under 17 versus Wales under 17. All the players, 11 stars, are playing in Italy. The center forward, Dumisi, is playing with Juventus. The other one was with Sassuolo, Udinese, Genova, and only two was from Greece, from PAOK and Olympiacos. So it seems that Albanian has talent, but in Albania are not the good qualities and professionalism to reach the top five leagues.
Yes, before the episode, I have checked. So the seven most valuable Albanian under 23s on Transfermarkt, only one was born in Albania. So the great Christian Aslani, but he wasn't raised in Albania. He moved to Italy when he was very young. So we can say that the seven most valuable under 23s from Albania did their football education somewhere else, and it's also a problem in my opinion, and it shows that the development in Albania still needs to get much better. So all these diaspora talents, they're great, but I think it's need to be a mix of players born and raised in Albania and diaspora guys, because right now I must say that all the best Albanian talents that I have covered on FTS, they were born elsewhere.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jack. Sometimes we have very good potential players here, but they do not be selected because someone who's even not playing outside Albania, but he is in a good club, they do not collect him. Even the players who are in Albania, you have to select and to prove them. Not just call all the players from diaspora, even if they don't not play.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. I think it's also another just indication of that. It's not like there's inherently a better gene pool or athleticism or any of these other traits from players born outside of Albania. It's the simple fact that they're exposed to better talent on a daily basis. They're exposed to better coaching, and it shows just how moldable young players are, right? Obviously, you will have your elite athletes and your players born to play football. If you have a Lamine Yamal, I'm somewhat convinced that if Lamine Yamal was in Cameroon, he would still be a great footballer. Probably not the Lamine Yamal of today, but still just an otherworldly talent. But I think it just goes to show that, talent development and having the right infrastructure and pathways in place is so, so crucial. And I think Albania and so many of the countries in the Balkans and in East Europe in general are on their way to making that step, but still have a lot of hurdles to go in that process. And then maybe to tie it all together, Mino, for you, do you think that the Albanian football federations, especially in the youth levels, need to do more to also consciously integrate the players within Albania into the national teams? Because it's always great to have success at the youth national teams, but to be honest, it is a little bit worrying when you say, okay, we have 11 players only playing in Italy that is representing our national team. I would be somewhat concerned and almost disheartened by that when I look at the fact that most of the players are still within Albania, of course.
In my opinion, yes. Also here, there are a lot of good young talents. For example, the club that I work, Partizani, they are under 16 years old team. This year they are like absolute. They are in first in position, no lose, only winning. They put a record in scoring goals and in conceded, and no one was selected in this group age by the federation. Like we have there a center forward scoring more than 20 goals. Why is not being selected? Only if he's on the bench. I'm not saying playing before someone who is playing in Juventus or Inter, but he has to be selected because in his age he's a champion. He's putting records, and you have to take this one. I see this a big problem because everyone has to take what they deserve. It doesn't matter if he lives in Albania, if he lives in Italy, in Greece, or what it shows on the field.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest points there as well is the fact that by putting them on the international platform, you also open up the pathway for them to get these moves abroad because they're in a bigger showcase event. They're playing against big nations with a lot of scouts, and everybody profits from this. The player potentially gets a move abroad where he can develop better than he potentially has a chance to do within Albania. And of course, also the clubs like Partizani in this case also profit from it as well because they can get a transfer fee that they can reinvest into infrastructure, into the academy. So it's almost even more essential for the environment and the long-term vision of Albania to make sure that these players are getting the opportunities when they deserve them from within the country.
Yes, exactly. And as we often mention in this podcast, trust in your own youth. So I have nothing against the diaspora guys, but I know what Mino was talking about this bias towards players from abroad and thinking, okay, if they come from top academies, they are probably top players. We had it in Poland many times. My main message to Albanian people in the federation would be trust more in your own youth.
I would even just expand on that a little bit to not just focus on the player side, but also to focus on the coaching side as well. Because I can only say from my American background, we got into the situation often in the US where any coach from Scotland, any coach from England would get jobs ahead of a homegrown American coach just off the basis of their background. Oh, they're English, they have a UK accent, they must know football. And I think that's something that is also really important to mention as well, that the Albanian players of the future should be developed by Albanian coaches also, because they're the ones that will be there throughout their entire pathway. And it's so essential that you also develop the coaches and have the pathways in place for that as well. So Mino, I don't know if this is too difficult of a question with your expertise more in player scouting, but what is it like for kind of coaching education in Albania? What does that look like for an aspiring coach who wants to develop in the game and yeah, wants to learn and be like a Western European counterpart?
Before it was a problem because about the coaches, like they had that idea and that culture and that school from communism period, and they was like blocking everyone, putting those old standards. I'm not against that period because everything is culture and everything is their experience. But football is like everything. It's like a science. It changes every day. But in this time, there are like a lot of young ex footballers that get a UEFA license. They have the new way of thinking in football, putting new methods. And before it was a big problem, like is not was not playing the right players, but was playing those one who pays to the trainer, was playing like the rich kids. But now things has changed for good because the new trainers, they see they want to achieve in their career, they put professionalism. Now they have like analysts, they have those GPS who see the players, like new methods, and everything else in modern football is putting also here. It was like a problem before, but now for coaching is changing a lot. In Albanian group ages before, we had like Bogdani, Alban Bushi, like players who played with national team and also play outside Albania, and they started to become like coaches for young group ages.
I'm really glad to hear that Albanian football becomes more professional. It will surely take more time to become fully professional and at the level of Western European countries. But I still can't forget what you said about Albania under 17s, that 11 players were from abroad. It really hurts me so much. And if it would happen in Poland, in all honesty, I would start riots. I just couldn't think that 11 players from my national team have nothing to do with the Polish youth system.
Yeah, I totally agree. Even me, when I saw the list of the players, and I see some young talents not only in Partizani but also in some clubs were not there. But maybe it comes because they lied by this. Oh, he plays at Inter. Oh, he plays at Juventus. And but I think these things has to change. Is in end of federation. But I totally agree with you. It's some is also good, but it's also bad because it blocked the doors from for the young talents here.
Yeah, and I think it's so demotivating for the entire structure within the country. It's demotivating for the players who, like you say, score 20 goals at U16 level and regardless don't have a chance. It's demotivating for the coaches who develop the players, who see that none of their work is being rewarded or even recognized by the FA. So it's just this whole chain of demotivation that leads to these tricky situations where you always need to balance this diaspora. I think we have the U17 AFCON going on right now, Yasik, and I want to just go back to Morocco because when Morocco last were in the U17 AFCON, we both spoke about how happy we were that it was a team that really felt not entirely built up of diaspora talent. Of course, you had a few from Ajax, from Le Havre as well, sprinkled in there, but there was real stars of the team that were from Morocco, from the major academies there. And if you had asked just a normal spectator to say, okay, which of these players are playing in Europe right now and which of these players are still playing in Africa, I don't think you would have been able to go for that Morocco team and necessarily say player for player, yeah, this one's in Africa, this one's in Europe. There was not these huge differences. And I'm really convinced, even without knowing all the players, that if you go for an U17 Albania team and have basically a diaspora versus homegrown game, I don't think you would see these drastic differences that a lineup of 11 diaspora players would necessarily represent.
Exactly, but we in Eastern Europe and Balkans, we have been like through communism, and I'm gonna be honest, we have some complexes towards the Western world, and there are still so many people that think, okay, everything what is Western is better. I'm not saying that we shouldn't take good examples because of course we need to do it, but sometimes it's too much. Like, okay, this guy plays at Juventus, so he needs to be better than someone from Partizani or from Dinamo. That's not true. That's not true. And yeah, thankfully, with the new generations, it's starting to change a lot in Poland, and I'm sure that in Albania it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of really important points regarding the diaspora connection. But let's focus then on the development within Albania, because I think that's always so much more interesting, so much more controllable almost for Albanian. And when we speak about the main talent producers within the country, what are kind of the academies that stand out to you as the major production hubs within Albania?
So about Partizani, the club that I work for, 2 years ago they built a new stadium, a new field, the new hotel for the young talents or foreign players to stay there, the gym, the pool, so also extra conditions to train very well. Also they provide food. They build the academy. They make a project. They offer good young coaches, and we build also a B team. So the players who don't play with first team, but they train with them, but they play at the B team. And in some cases, we succeed. Like we took young talent from Kosovo, from other cities, from Tirana, and also young players from Africa. We kept them like 2 or 3 years, and like a case is Abubakar Jata. 1 year ago, he came from Gambia to Partizani, and this year he reached the first team. Also, was a young guy who was playing with under 19, and now he moved in Croatia. And is a case that produced Ernest Mucci. He came from academy. He played with the first team. He went to Legia Warsaw, and now he played in Besiktas. Also, Apollonia is a good academy. He represents Fieri. Vlasnia in Shkodra. Also, they are very good, not only in football, but in different sports. It's like a city, love the sports so much. The good thing is the academies are doing upgrades in everything. But the bad thing is the football is only focused in 3 or 4 big cities. In other cities, it's like dying every day. And it make problems because if you are born and raised in a city, you have opportunity. But if you come from a poor area or a small cities, your talent may die there.
Yeah, Yasser, I think it's that final point is something that I've taken from so many of our podcasts, honestly, up until this point. When we go back to our first podcast with George, or even our last one with Ireland as well, these emerging football nations, it's always important to look at where actually the football development is concentrated. Is it from a truly countrywide scale, like we see more in Uruguay, for example, when we did that podcast, or is it really in these few major cities? And I don't know, Yasser, maybe you can also give your opinion as well, but what do you think about this concentration of football development being very centered in a few local regions in a country? Do you think that's something that's just a natural byproduct and is not something you really need to change? Or do you think it's something that's actually really, really detrimental to a country's football development and their ability to make the most of actually the talent available to them?
So you know what? In the past months, I have been trying to make a research on Independiente del Valle from Ecuador, and I was trying to ask people like, what's their secrets? What do they have that the other Ecuadorian clubs do not have? And the answer was they go where the other clubs didn't want to go, like in the poorest areas to give all these kids opportunities. And guess what? It's right now it's one of the best youth academies in South America. So in my opinion, yeah, like talent is everywhere, and especially in these poor zones where these kids dream about becoming footballers more than these, city boys who have so many opportunities. For some of these poorer kids, it's the only way to make their way out of the poverty. So, in my opinion, there should be programs in these smaller towns, in villages for these young talents. And a country like Albania could only benefit from it in the future, in my opinion.
Comparing to Ecuador, Albania is a very small country, and like the distance from a city to another city is like 1 hour, 2 hours, and infrastructure is changed now. The roads are very good, but I think it's like the progress the clubs and that they want to do. They also here sometimes they want the product ready, not to go and collect and search and develop. It's a pity for me because in a small country when people love so much the football and thanks the God the weather is also so good to not go and search or make projects because football is a socializing sport. Even if you don't become a player, the children stay away from the bad habits. It's a good thing also for society. It's not only the point, let's make him a football player. Also, a bad thing that I see here is like even if you go in to see like children to play football, you see like parents yelling, "Oh, go, go, score, take the ball, pass, pass," or you see like there are like 50 balls, and a child says, "Oh, it's my ball." No, it's not your ball because there are 49 others. But even the mindset has to change. It's a problem. It started in mentality, in professionalism, and in politics. But comparing with 5 years ago, things has changed a lot. Has changed a lot for good. But still to do more and more.
What you've mentioned about these soccer dads, crazy soccer dads, and crazy soccer moms, I hate it. And every time I go to see youth football, I just want to punch them and say, "Shut up and let your kid enjoy playing football." And about this project for these poorer kids, like in small villages, like of course it requires a lot of work and passion put in that, but in my opinion, the benefits from making this project would be much higher than the amount of work put in it. So I really hope that it will be happening in Albania and in many other countries as well.
Yeah, and I think it's especially interesting in the context of Albania because we see Albania now look a lot towards the African market, and Mino, we can speak about this in a moment as well. And then it's obviously because it's a relatively cheap market. Albania is one of the easier countries for African talents also to emigrate into, and there's a lot of upsides with their physical potential and all the other aspects around it. But I almost hate this aspect of it when you see the untapped potential still within a lot of regions in Albania itself, when you're looking kind of outwards towards Africa, towards these emerging markets, when you necessarily haven't even actually exploited your own market enough. It could just be having coaches from Tirana or another top academy in Albania go to these smaller feeder clubs in an hour away or 45 minutes away and just hosting training sessions 2 3 times a month just to almost develop the players, but also get a sense for the talent that's in these regions. So you're understanding, almost scouting at the same time as you're coaching, where you're really getting appreciation for the volume of players available in these regions. And I'm not sure exactly how it's done in Albania, but I just think that there's still so many players slipping through the cracks almost through the concentration on just a few select academies in Albania, but in so many other countries in Eastern Europe.
Yes, in Albania, we prefer a lot the young talents or football players from Africa. In some cases, they succeed very well. They come from there, played here, and they went in Europe. I'm also head of scouting in the football agency here. And 3 years ago, we bring a young talent from Nigeria. He played 6 months with Ignatia, and after 6 months, he went to Debrecen in Hungary. From Hungary, he went this summer in Lens in League One. It makes Albania a good trampoline or a good first step for the players. And this the problem I think in Albania is also the law of sports, because the law of sports is very old, and comparing to Kosovo, if someone, a businessman, invests in football here, it doesn't take anything back. It's like called or known as a sponsor. But going to Kosovo, if I'm a businessman and, for example, I want to invest 100K, the government reduce me the tasks. I have to pay 15% tax in there. Do not pay to me, but you invest it in football. This is a good thing because it collects more money and it raises the wages. Also, Albania is like a physical and league, is not very good in tactical. And African players are very strong in physically features and also their speed. And that they prefer a lot because they can took from Africa for not big amount of money, develop here and then sell to Europe.
For me, the perfect club in Albania would be a club that would give their own youth a lot of chances, so opportunities for the academy players, plus would have some 3 4 more experienced players, and then African scouting is the way to go. So it would be the perfect mix. So the academy, scouting in Africa, and we always repeat here in the Football Talent Show that the future of football is in Africa. So it's the perfect direction to go and scout. So it would be my perfect Albanian club.
Yeah, and Mino, I think we should touch on the standard and the style of play in the league in a moment, because I think just from the limited footage I've watched, you're absolutely right regarding the physicality of the Albanian top flight and why African players can be so fundamental also for really making a big impact in that league. But Jacek, before we go there, any final words you want to add here?
Yeah, so as a big fan of football in the Balkan area, I wanted to ask you, how would you compare the Albanian youth system and the one from Kosovo? I feel like I see more interesting youngsters in Kosovo. Maybe it's my bias, but I feel like the number of interesting under 21s in Kosovo is quite higher than in Albania. And it's quite weird because, in theory, Albanians should be doing that better. But yeah, in Kosovo, I really like to scout in Kosovo. So, like, my two favorite underrated countries to scout in the Balkan area is definitely Montenegro and Kosovo. And yeah, what do you think? How would you compare them?
I started to travel and scouting in Kosovo since 7 years ago in 2018. And I totally agree with you. It starts also with the parents and the friends there. They all go to see the children who play. They go a good fun. Also, it's like a push up for them. Also, the clubs is more concentrated there in youth because they have that a big case with Rashica, who went from there. He went to Vitesse and Bundesliga. Also, the law there is more better than here. and also the trainers are old school from Yugoslavia, but also they have work and in outside, and now they are coming and put their work in Kosovo. In my opinion, Kosovo will be more better in some years. What is missing there is like the conditions. The comparing to Albania, infrastructure is more better here, but the vision and the plans are more better there.
And I think it's not only my opinion, because like Ermir Rashica, he went to the Ukrainian second division, and he was like a star in Albania, and probably one of the biggest talents that Albania has at the moment. And for example, the guys from Kosovo, they get some really interesting moves recently. So Drilon Hazrola, he went to Rapid Bucuresti, so a strong team in Romania. And I feel like also it's not only my opinion, but also other European clubs, they think that Kosovo is much more interesting area to scout than Albania these days.
Yes, there was some movements from Kosovo. They went to Romania. One went to Horsens from Lapi. It was a big amount, 650K. I forget his name. He plays in Horsens now. I think the clubs, comparing the clubs from Kosovo to Albania, they are becoming more smarter with their movements when they are sending the player. They are not seeing only for just one movement.
Yeah, and I think when we get to part two of our show, when we go deeper into some of the Albanian rising talents, I think it'll show that there's more than enough talent also within Albania. But just for a moment here, I want to touch a little bit more on the top flight and the standard of the top flight, the Categoria Superiore. We alluded to it a little bit in the style of play in some of the clubs we've mentioned already, but I always like to ask our guests what they compare the league to on a wider European standard so that kind of listeners can get a sense of the level of the league. So, what would you say are kind of the defining features of the league and the level of the league against its European counterparts?
Comparing to other leagues or to European clubs, they have to do a lot in everything. Comparing to Kosovo, Macedonia, Bosnia, I think Albania's Superliga is more better. But we don't have to compare our league with those leagues. We have to compare with Bulgaria, with Greece, with Croatia. Like we have to follow the examples to the big clubs there who participated in Europa League or in Champions League. I think the main problem is the politic and the financial, because even if you have a good team, you have a budget to 1 million or maximum 2 million euros, and you play against a football team who has like 20 million budget. Of course, you're gonna suffer. We have seen before, like Bate Borisov in Belarusia, they participated in Champions League. Tirana is a big city, it's a big capital, it's a lot of money. Why not a Partizan, Tirana, or Dinamo to have a budget like 5 million or 10 million euros to be competitive in Europeans? But I think that's the problem. It's like the investments, the law that I speak before. Because if you change the law and the politics, the investments will come. Because another problem here is the clubs are not owned by one person. All the clubs are owned by council and some people who make sponsorship, except Partizani, who is all being owned by one person. The other clubs are also by council and some people who just put the money. This is the bad thing that I have to say about comparing to the European clubs.
It's really interesting, and I must say that yeah, I'm not a regular watcher of Categoria Superiore, but I have watched some players, and the thing that caught my eye when I was scouting Jurgen Chelaka. Funnily enough, he moved to Poland a few months later, but on the pitch he was making at least three career-ending tackles per game, and it was so interesting. And he wasn't even receiving any cards, so I said to myself, "Wow, this is something that I have never seen in my life." So the hard tackling, the physicality, is surely there.
I have to say the environment is very violent, and they have a lot of pressure. And sometimes the football pitches are not in good condition, especially in raining days. They have that culture in their head, like go and play like hard or do or extra tackles or damage the opponent. I think it comes also from the culture here. And the one problem that I don't like, because weather here is so good, why not to invest more and more in natural grass football pitches? They just pay and make an artificial pitch. It also creates problems for the players, and sometimes when they go and play in good football pitches, their performance is not so good because they are used to play in bad football pitches or in artificial. It's my the point of view. Huh?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it right at the beginning of the show when we spoke briefly about the infrastructure. We have a club like Partizani now with a state of the art training facility. I'd recommend to anybody listening just to give it a quick Google, and then also of course the national stadium where Partizani play and where Tirana play as well. Even hosted the first UEFA Conference League final in 2022. So there is the capacity and the potential for excellent infrastructure, and like you mentioned, the weather also allows for football year round. So there's all these conditions that make it possible. But do we really see this on a national scale that clubs are actually investing into infrastructure at the academy level as well? Or do we still see pretty rundown facilities that, yeah, are not conducive to high level talent development?
Elbasani is another team in Superliga. They have very good stadium. Even when it's raining, you can play very good there. Vlasnia has a national stadium also. Egnatia, the current champion, just reconstruction and made a very beautiful stadium. Vlora is a big city in the south. They have a project to build a new stadium also. But what I have seen in on those years, even when they invest in the new pitch, you pay, but you don't have the people or the equipment to treat it as well. Like we see in European clubs, they put those lights for to keep the temperature, the watering and everything else. The stadiums are being renovated and building new one like every year, but the what I see the problem is with academies and training facilities. They have the opportunity to build good pitches with grass, but they just built a one pitch with artificial grass and let it, and a lot of games playing there. And it happens sometimes with talents, or when they have important matches, they suffer with those muscles, nearly with legs.
And will we see some of these good stadiums at the Euros under 17 that are coming this year?
Yes, is Egnatia. Is a house of football here in Tirana that is the complex of the Albania Football Federation. It also has a natural grass. Is Albania Stadium, Elbasani Stadium, or Elbasani Arena, we call it. But are some new projects. They have started to build it now to be ready with under 21 European. They will host with Serbia.
Yeah, I know it'll definitely be an exciting opportunity also for us to see some more of these Albanian talents, and hopefully, like we said, real Albanian talents and not just this selection from Italy. And when we speak about the homegrown players themselves who come through these academy systems, how many opportunities are they getting in the first division? Do you think that pathway to minutes in first teams is quite open from the clubs? Or do you think that clubs are quite hesitant almost to give their young players a shot at real first team minutes?
For young players in second division and the first division, it's more easily to offer them a space to play. But everyone wants to play in Superliga, and it's a problem because no one wants to sacrifice to give time to himself and then to reach the top level. Coming to football clubs in Superliga is a little bit difficult to give space in young talents. It's like Tirana who does it. It's Partizani, it's Vlasnia, but in other clubs it's very problem. They prefer an old one, an African player, but they don't give space to a young talent. For example, we at Partizani, we have Mitongo from Cameroon, Yata from Gambia. They come from Partizani B to the first team. We also had an attacking midfielder from Syria. He started from Partizani B and he reached the first team. Also, Tirana has done it a lot. 2 or 3 games before, they put two young players, like 17 years old and 16 years old in Superliga. The other clubs then is they suffer. They don't do it, and I think it's is a problem because for me I would like to put a law. If you want to, like, you have to put two young players under 19 years old, and a main problem for me is like the next year in Albania Superliga will be allowed 11 forever foreigner players to start up. Now, in January, they made from four, they made seven. Next year, they will do it 11. It keeps the product here.
Yeah, no doubt, and it feels like many of these decisions that are almost a slap in the face for the development of actual football in the country. Feels like a lot of short term thinking with decisions like that, where you're almost sacrificing your long term vision and talent that's actually being able to be produced in the country just to raise the standard in the short term by bringing in more mercenaries or more foreign players who can obviously develop your football in the short term to maybe have one more club actually reach the conference league or get into these competitions. But end of the day, it's for what if this money is then not being filtered back into your local homegrown players and your country's talent development and not just your country's position as a place for foreigners to come to and move abroad then from there.
Definitely, Adam. It's not a healthy system, and having all like 11 mercenaries on the pitch. Like, I'm not against scouting. Scouting needs to be there, but it has to be a mix of good scouted players with your own academy players or youngsters from your country.
It has to be mixed, or if you want to, if you can find that top player in your own country, then you scouting and bring it, but not to keep the league like that. Also, another problem for me is that Albania has that final four. It kills the competition because you are in the first place and for example you are 10 points ahead the second or the third and fourth place and the players do not give the maximum, and also one club for example has a budget or investing like 2 million euros, and someone that is in fourth place for example doesn't invest it, and they fight with you, to become a champion only for this format, Final Four. And another problem with Final Four system is if you are the third or fourth place, the first and the second place they also go in final even if they draw. Like if you are the third or fourth place, you have only to win. If you draw, you lose.
Yeah, it's a really wild system. I think just to explain it a little bit better. So basically, the final four teams that end the league table in the top four will play a semifinal and final to decide who wins the league. And I mean, we speak a lot about the MLS playoffs and how wild they can be, but I think having only four teams do a semifinal and final where you need to peak at the right moment is absolutely bananas, to be honest. And I can't see any argument for why you would do this. I think we have national cups for a reason. That's what they're there for, and we don't need to now use the same format in a league. So, yet another one of these crazy decisions from the Football Federation in Albania, which I think only they could come up with.
Yeah, in the Balkans, you see many of that. Like, people create problems for themselves, and then it takes them years to solve them. So it's really 100% Balkans, and yeah. But Adam, let's be honest, it's still a much simpler system than the Uruguayan one, for example.
Yeah, it's been 2 months since the Uruguayan recording, and I think I'm still going over my notes trying to figure out how that lead works. So if you're trying to figure out the structure of a lead, do not listen to the Uruguayan episode. Maybe listen to it for some other aspects. But Mino, why don't we kind of put a bow on it? In your opinion, would you say Albanian football and specifically Albanian talent development is it on the right path, or do you think it needs critical change?
In my opinion, they have made a lot of progress because a lot of young talents move from Albania to Croatia, in Hungary, in Ukrainian, in Turkish first and second league. But those are like how to say the minimum. We have take from them the minimum. I think they have to make critical change, as I said, in sports, in law, in sports, in financial, in educating and producing new coaches. Also, you can invite top clubs to build academies here, to make like twin clubs together, and you take the experience. You make the qualification for the qualities for the coaches. So yes, progress we have made, but we need to do more and more because the potential here exists. We are not trying to, like how to say, to save the fish to climb the tree. But we have the potential, but we don't have the mechanism. It's not right.
I'm always a big fan of these Eastern European sayings. Yatsid always throws them at me, and they always have their own sweet twist to them. But one of them I love that I know Yatsid has always said is that while we make one step forward, the rest of the world makes two, and I think that applies to Albania here as well.
Adam, exactly what I wanted to say. And I think we can say it about like majority of Eastern European countries. Of course, there is progress there, but the problem is that the others make this progress faster and better.
Okay, and welcome back for part 2 of our Albania special. As always on the Football Town Show, the second half of the show is dedicated to going deeper into some of the unique talents within and being produced by Albania. And I would say most of our players, of the 2 that we've each selected, are all playing still in Albania, but we have a few scattered across Eastern Europe and the Balkans. And Mino, seeing as you are our guest, I think it's only best that we start with your selection. Excuse my pronunciation throughout. Your selection is Gjergji Kote. He's a 20-year-old central midfielder playing for FK Partizani in the Albanian top flight. It's only fitting that Mino, of course, selects players from Partizani, given that he's also working as a scout for the club. So no hard feelings there. And Kote is a 2-time Albanian U21 international. And just a few months ago, he actually extended his contract with Partizani until 2029. So yeah, that's quite a big statement, I would say, for young players that also believe in the project and Partizani also to be able to offer them such attractive conditions that they also feel willing to commit to such long-term deals. So, Mino, talk to me a little bit about Kote.
With Kote, like 3 years ago, me and the chief scout Altin Ferrat, that is now at Partizani, discovered Kote, and we sent him to Hajduk of Split in Croatia. They really liked him there, but you know, Albania is not in European Union, and sometimes papers, taxes, it becomes a problem or a reason to not take him the player. And after it, he stayed in another club there in Croatia, and then he came. We took him to Partizani. This year, he started to play with the first team. For me, he is a very good talent. He has football in his feet. But unfortunately, he has not good statistics. And this year was a little bit unlucky because he broke one of his finger on the right foot, who let him out like more than 1 month. But he's still young. I think next year will be easier.
Yeah, from I will be honest. Of all the guys you guys have selected, Kote is my favorite one, really. As you said, he's a natural talent. He's also naturally two-footed, and he has so much energy in him. He reminds me a little bit of Nicolo Barella. So a guy that I will definitely cover for FTS. He will be a talent of the day soon. And what you said, Mino, like he can move the ball into more advanced areas, but then he is kind of out of ideas. That's his also his problem, like the final ball and finishing. But yeah, I really love his energy on the pitch, his mobility. He's a little jewel, in my opinion. So I'm a fan. Of course, he's not a top talent in European standards, but definitely a really good talent for Albania.
Yes, I his decision making in final third he suffers. Also, I know him personally. He's a very good guy. He has to work with himself to show more character, more confidence in the pitch. But he is a very good player. He showed a great vision against Laci in Albania Cup when he assist for the goal, and his assist was very. It was a key pass. Was very good. So for his age, he's amazing here in Albania Superliga. I think next year will be his year to show all his potential he has.
And Mino, just to give a little bit of a verdict, then where do you see his ceiling ending up? Do you see him making that move outside of Albania into Western Europe in the future?
Yes, I think if he goes well, Hungary would be a very good step for him.
Yeah, no doubt. One to watch. And yeah, I said your player is also one to watch, of course. Also a player born in 2004. He's already 21 years old now. He's a central midfielder playing for FC Malisheva in the Kosovan top flight. And I'm talking about Etnik Brruti here. And Etnik Brruti, I would say, is a very contentious selection. We've spoken a little bit already about Jacek's tendency or allegiances to the Kosovan side of football as well. And Brruti is one who just recently made the switch to opt for Albania after playing basically his entire youth national team career in Kosovo. And besides the footballing attributes that we'll get into in just a moment, I'm actually going to go to you first here, Mino, and your opinion about Bruti's switch and in general the switches of national team players between Albania and Kosovo. How is that normally handled or reacted to in media circles?
On the media, it was like a boom because they said, "Oh, he left Kosovo, he went to Albania." But it's like the media who do those things because even if you ask people here in Albania, in Kosovo is not a problem if he plays for Kosovo or if he plays for Albania. In the end, we are proud for each other, even if he choose to play for Kosovo or for Albania. And for Bruti, he is doing very well in Malisheva there in Kosovo League. But in my opinion, it was not the right moment to be selected by Silvino because we have Arinaldo Rapa. He was at Partizani. He went in Kolos in Ukraine, and he was two times the best player, young best player in Albania. And why not to select him? Also, is another player who playing in Croatia. Okay, he's not 21 years old as Bruti. He's 26 years old. Lindon Selay. He plays with Rijeka. He is 1 point behind Hajduk Split, so he's fighting for to become a champion in Croatia. And if you need a good center midfield, you have to select this one, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's such a complicated situation with Diaspora Town often because you really need to pitch something to them and really give them a vision that they're so important to your national team construct, and that can lead to basically promises being made that actually obstruct a lot of the talent who deserve the places, like the towns you mentioned in Rijeka, for example. But nevertheless, Jacek, I think both of us think Etnik Brruti is a really talented player. Maybe he's not ready for the full Albanian national team just yet, and then that was more so to do with the fact that you needed something, almost a little carrot in front of him to convince him to make the move. But in a few years, I definitely think he will be at the talent where nobody will be denying that he is an Albanian national team player.
Yes. Also, I think they selected him right now because not to lose him.
Yeah,
because they
exactly.
selected, give the passport and all, finish the procedure, but he was staying in the stadium. That was the moment they didn't want to lose him.
Of course, and it was more of a, let's say, a political decision rather than a sporting one. But as for the player, I really love these kinds of midfielders. He was born to play in possession football. I think I compared him to Fabian Ruiz. He's not as tall as Fabian Ruiz, but he's really technical, really good ball carrier, and he's one of my these three golden talents from Malisheva. So Drilon Hazrollai, Etnik Brruti, and Laurent Cilani. So it's like my top three Malisheva talents, and it's really interesting that Malisheva has so many good young players there. It's not a club that I was familiar with some years ago, but right now, if I scout in Kosovo, I checked Malisheva first.
Yeah, it's a super interesting project, and Yasid, I get the point. We will do an episode on Kosovo soon. Don't you worry. You're getting it home to me. But on Bruti, I was looking for the longest time for a player comparison. I really, really liked Fabian Ruiz because Bruti is also one of these midfielders who has the qualities to literally play all three positions in midfield. He brings things that can do all of those attributes. Super progressive passer. Physically, he's not someone who's huge or powerful, but he can drive with the ball really well. He's quite athletic as well. He can develop into something really promising. So yeah, he's definitely a talent to watch for the Albanian national team, but also just for all Western European leagues in the future. The fact that he's 21 maybe is a little bit frustrating, I would say, but by no means rules out a career in Western Europe, or at least in leagues like Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary. I think there he could really make a good career.
Definitely, and it's really surprising that at the age of 21, he's still in Kosovo. A player with these qualities, I would expect him to be already in a better European league for at least 2 years.
Yeah, no doubt. And unfortunately, it's something we often are confronted with when it's talking about Baltic talents or Balkan talents as well. Is the fact that you have these small windows of time where you really need to make those move happens at 19, 18 years old. And if you miss that just by 1 year or one transfer window, it can seriously hurt your career. I mean, we're seeing it now with a guy like Lutas Vapne, who we speak about a lot in the Latvian context, but there's so many examples. Let's move on though to my first pick, and I've gone for Kevin Dodaj. He's a 2005-year-old player, making him 19. He's a left winger playing for KF Vilaznia in the Albanian top flight. And for his age, he's getting a lot of experience and minutes. So he's played 28 games this season, almost 2,000 minutes, and already has 5 goals and 3 assists. He's also an Albanian international, has played 3 times for the U21. And he was actually linked to a Ukrainian Premier League outfit in the January window, FC Kolos Kovalivka. And Dora is a really interesting player. He's super quick and accelerative. He has great tempo, dynamic, skillful and two-footed. He can go either side of an opponent, especially in transitions and counter-attacking situations. He's very impactful. His ball striking is also excellent. So on both feet, he can really score from range well and has a lot of abilities. There's quite a few times this season, actually, be it in the Conference League qualifiers or in the league, where he's made a big moment in the final minutes to win a game or to draw back an equalizer. So already has a lot of big moments for a player who's only 19. And I think, to be honest, he's a player who's really developing a lot in Albanian football because he's someone who needs that high physical contact, that constant duress to really develop. I mean, you see many instances every game where he's having to just deal with such heavy challenges, physical altercations. And right now he's struggling under it a lot, but you can see that he's developing into senior football in that way. And it's a really good learning curve for him to play the ball quicker, to deal with physical robustness, and it's something that will really help him in the future. So definitely a player who's one to watch, and I really like his pathway in Albania more so than if he would go to a second team in Germany, for example, and only play possession football and never really have to deal with this real senior style physical altercations. I think that's something that will really help him in the future for a career that can definitely go into Western Europe soon.
Yeah, Kevin Dodaj, I liked him so much. I was so close to bring him in Partizani, but he scored a goal in European competitions, and then his club changed all the idea from him. He's suffering in consistency. In loose class matches, he's not starting in 11, but he did very well. In January, he had some rumors like he was Lens was behind him and he was going to transfer in Lens in League One. But then he stayed to Vaznia. He is very good. I like his agility, his speed. He has to. I think for me, it would be 1 year to stay more 1 year in Albania and then to move, in my opinion, because you have to score more and to work on himself in some aspects.
Yeah, I totally agree, Mino, and not just from the physical side of things, but also from some of his possession decision making. Does he has these great moments, but if you actually watch a full game, you also see that he has a lot of turnovers, a lot of needless passes, at moments, some overzealous decision making that's natural with his age, but also something that he needs to develop. And it's good that he's getting so many minutes in Albania. I think that's something that keeping him there for another season and allowing him to leave at 20 will only help his development in the long term.
Yes, definitely one of the most interesting talents in Albania. For me, he's like in between explosive winger and inside forward. I think he should lean more towards inside forward and become a really prolific wing player. He's not ready for a top five league. Let's be honest here. So, in my opinion, the next step he should take, it would be maybe Croatia, maybe a league like Hungary. But yeah, definitely one of the most promising youngsters that you guys have. And yeah, like Ukraine, Ermir Rashica went to Ukraine. Now Kevin Dodaj is linked with Ukrainian club. So I think there is a strong link there between Albania and Ukraine right now.
Yes, between Albania and Ukraine, yes, it's strong. Like Arinaldo Rapai from Partizani to Kolos, Christian Bal, a striker from Partizani, also went to Ukraine. We have Teddy Tsara from Partizani to Ukraine, Rashica. Also, last year, a player from Laci went to Ukraine Premier League. So yeah, I agree with you. It's also for me, it's like that. He has to go like in Croatia, Hungary, maybe Ukraine. But for top five leagues, yes, it's too early. Or you can sign for them, but you don't know when you play.
Yeah, I personally thought that maybe something in one of the smaller clubs in Switzerland could even be somewhat interesting for him. I think that's also always a good destination for Albanian players just because of the Diaspora aspect there. And you're just so close then to leads like the Bundesliga also where you can make a big step. But there's so many good options, I think, in Hungary as well, like Jacek mentioned. So will be an interesting one to look out for in this summer window or also the windows to come. But Mino, let's move on to your second talent that you've selected, Besar Gudjufi. He's a 2004 player, so a 20-year-old. He's also a left winger, this time playing for, of course, FK Partizani in the Albanian top flight. He joined Partizani actually in the January window. He signed from FC Shkupi in North Macedonia, one of the biggest clubs in North Macedonia, where he's actually born. He does represent Albania, though, at youth level. He's a two-time Albanian U21 international. And interestingly, he also spent a big part of his youth development in the Besiktas Academy in Istanbul. So, yeah, Mino, definitely an interesting player who you guys at Partizani have actually now got in your roster. So talk to me a little bit about him and also the transfer that went down in January.
Yeah, Besar Gudjufi is an interesting profile. We know him since when he was representing North Macedonia under 17 and 19, also under 21. He plays in Shkupi and Sturmica there. Then he moved to Besiktas under 19. We went behind him and we proposed to the club and also to him the project, and we transfer him in January. I think next season he would be totally ready. He played some minutes this season in Superliga, but his condition is not so good. for the moment, because in Besiktas he was last games he was not playing too much. Also, he is representing Albania under 21 national team. So in our project at Partizani, he is a main choice for the next season.
Yes, I watched him recently, and yeah, he didn't impress me very much. I think like the play role is similar to Dodaj, so an inside forward on the left side. But yeah, he needs to become much more prolific. I know that football is not only about goals and assists, but for this kind of a profile, he needs to get much better decision making, and these numbers needs to be much better in my opinion. So I still rate Dodaj higher than him, but yeah, definitely another interesting profile here.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing synonymous with Jacek and wingers, it's that they need to get numbers on the board. I think that's something we speak about so often, but that's football at the end of the day. And in modern football, a winger needs output, and it's critical to success. And Jacek, speaking now for your player, we have the wonderfully named Feta Fetai, one of my favorite names I think we've ever profiled on here, and also one of the most wonderful players I think that we've also had a look at. He's a 19-year-old defensive midfielder playing for Lokomotiva Zagreb in the Croatian top flight. He's played 23 games and over 1,500 minutes for them this season. He's another one, like our previous player, Besar Gudjufi, who's born in North Macedonia, and he's actually represented North Macedonia for a lot of different youth age groups. But now he's representing Albania. It's a big decision actually, and probably a big coup as well for Albania to get a player of his talents. And he's often referred to as the Albanian Modric, which, to be honest, is not that difficult to understand why. He looks like Modric, he plays a little bit like Modric, and he, of course, plays in Zagreb. He doesn't play for Dinamo Zagreb, but he still plays in Zagreb. So it would be like calling basically Artem Stepanov the Ukrainian Haaland. It's that simple of a comparison. But yeah, so let's go a little bit deeper into the player to describe him, other than just saying he's Modric.
So yeah, Feta Fetai, so the greatest name in football since the superb Bulgarian goalkeeper Zdravko Zdravkov. Actually, it's an interesting story because someone very close to Feta wrote me a message a few years ago. And yeah, he said, look, I have a really interesting player. And usually, I get a lot of these messages on Twitter, on my email, on LinkedIn. And 99% of these cases, yeah, players are not good enough. But this time I watched the video, and I said to myself, wow, he is a really good player. So it was this one special case. And of course, like the comparison to Modric was obvious. So a tiny roaming playmaker, a lot of mobility, good ball carrier, a great work rates. So a really interesting profile. And yeah, I was surprised. To be honest, I was also surprised about Etnik Brruti switching to Albania, and then yeah, Feta Fetai also switching to Albania now. So definitely, I will say a good signing by Albania, and a really interesting player who gets a lot of minutes for Lokomotiva. To be honest, he's exceeding my expectations. So it was a really good move. Lokomotiva is a great developing club, and he gets a lot of minutes. So he will probably get a really interesting move in the coming years.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously I think the Modric comparison is one you have to take, but I also see a little bit of Gavi in him as well. Because he has that fight to him, that bite, that defensive tenacity. And like Gavi, he's really revolutionized his game to adapt to senior level. You look at his transfer market profile and he looks like a 15-year-old child from his profile picture, and he's 1 meter 72, and you think, oh my God, how can this player manage in senior football? And then you take one look, and in 23 games in the top flight in Croatia, he's collected 11 yellow cards. I think that's pretty insane, to be honest. He's had 3 separate yellow card suspensions this season. The only reason he doesn't have more minutes is that basically every 4 weeks he misses a game for yellow card suspension. It's like Neymar, where he has an appointment every year for Carnival. It seems like every 4 weeks Fetai has something important that he has to attend to and needs the weekend free. but he's not someone who can be messed with. And just because he looks like this magical little player who needs protection all around him, he'll throw in an elbow, he'll put in a tackle, and he'll do also the Gavi dirtiness when it's required.
Yes, definitely. This yellow card is also due to his physicality. I think he tries to compensate the lack of physical strength with this incredible work rate, and yeah, sometimes he goes just overboard.
Yeah, and I'm not recommending Fetai to not work on it and continue to pick up 20 yellow cards a season, because I don't think that's a good recipe for success. A player like Jens Kastrup had a similar issue in the early years of his career and developed out of it, I would say. So I think he'll develop through it, but I like at least the fact that, he's not just taking it, right? He's not just taking the tackles, and he can also dish them out and show that, hey, don't mess with me. I'll happily put in a late challenge and pick up a yellow. And he's never been sent off of a red card. Maybe that changes this week, but he has a natural ability to see out a yellow card in games. So yeah, Mino, anything from your side about Fatai?
Yeah, it's in the media. He make like a boom because every media writing like the new Modric, looking like Modric, putting him on a pedestal. But I agree with you. Like he is by his look more than the style of playing. But for me, in my opinion, if a player goes very well in Croatia, he can play everywhere, and it is proven in a lot of players. We also had Amir Ramani. He went from Croatia. Now he plays in Italy, Napoli. Uzuni, he from Lokomotiv Zagreb. He went to La Liga. A lot of young talents are playing also here in Albania, also in Kosovo, and in Croatia. For me, Croatia is the top country in Balkan. It's also Romania and Greece that have like big clubs also participating in Champions League, but Croatia is still the best in Balkan for me.
Yeah, and I think our viewership is right along those lines, because I don't think there's any country that's been requested more for us to do than Croatia. And we're working on it. We're trying to find the perfect guest. You can't always get someone as knowledgeable as Mino on, so that's why it's always difficult to find the right person to also speak about these unique talent pipelines. And on the prospect of Lokomotiva Zagreb, I think when we do that Croatia podcast, we'll definitely also touch on Lokomotiva Zagreb, because people often only think about Dinamo Zagreb when you consider Zagreb, but Lokomotiva Zagreb is also such an incredible talent pipeline. And the fact that he's playing so many minutes in this midfield, yeah, it really speaks volumes. This is not a tiny club or a club that doesn't have other options in midfield. He is putting very, very experienced and impressive talents and older players on the bench to play. So yeah, a top talent. And finally, then moving forward to our final player for today, we had Feta, and now we're going to Meta. Ermal Meta, he's a 2005 born player, another central midfielder, this time 19 years old. He's playing in Albania for KF Tirana. He's played 20 games this season, almost 1,500 minutes, and he's a one-time Albania U21 international. And interestingly, he was actually amongst 4 candidates for the Talent of the Year award in Albania for the year 2024. For some reason, I could not find out who won this award. I'm not sure it was ever even handed out, but maybe Mino, you can tell us who won this award.
I think or Rapai or Rashica, but I think Rashica. Uh, yes, he plays at Tirana, and Tirana is the most titled club in Albania. He started to play for Tirana 2 years ago. I really like him because he is like a polyvalent player. He can play in midfield. He can play sometimes. He helps the team in as a right back, center back. But for me, the best role for him is the center midfield. I like his physique, his style of play. There are some rumors that he's going to move in Italy, but I think it's not the right choice for him to go in Italy because this January the government between Albania and Italy they make a new law like Albanians are not more extra communitary in Italy. But you can go in Italy, but look what happened. they sign you with under 19 football teams. So for me, it's better for him to go in Croatia, in Hungary, in Ukraine, in Turkey, than to go to play like for Bologna under 19. And then you see yourself in Serie A C or Serie A D.
Yeah, Mino, I think how I'm hearing you speak right now, if you had a different voice, I would think it's Jacek speak to me right now, because I think nobody is more a proponent for not going to the Serie C and Primavera pathway than Jacek himself. Jacek, anything to add to that? But I think Mino basically summed up your thoughts as well.
Yeah, definitely. And in my opinion, about Meta, his biggest strength is his versatility. So he's a definition of a utility player. So a role that is not really a role. And yeah, he is definitely an interesting player. Mino said that he likes him the most in midfield. I would say that I would like to see him as a right-sided center back in a three-man line. I think he could do a good job there because I saw him as a right back, as a central defender, and in midfield. And I think, yeah, this would be the golden solution for him to play in a back three as a right-sided center back.
Yeah, yes, and I think more often than not, I think we only need one of us to show up for these podcasts, because I feel like we speak the same thing over and over. And I too am a big proponent of him in a free man back line. I really like his cleverness defensively. I think he understands that he's not physically the most developed player, so he doesn't go into these duels. He knows how to position his body well. He has good timing. He's a technical defender, so he has good timing for tackling. He doesn't just basically say, okay, I have a superior frame and I'll just throw this around. He's knows how to go into challenges. I also really like his long range passing and switches of play. And that's what I think you can really utilize as a right side center back in a back free. You know, driving with the ball one step forward and making that lateral switch to a wing back or a winger on the other side. And in midfield, I'm slightly underwhelmed by his decision making under pressure and in tight spaces. I think especially in the Albanian top flight, you see that he can get kind of frazzled in matches. You know, the high intensity and the physicality of the game. It's very ping pong back and forth in the Albanian top flight. And you see that he's not necessarily a tempo manipulator or dictator. He's someone who can get caught in these really high intensity back and forth matches and end up being quite loose on the ball. And that's where I like him more as that right side center back or even right back, to be honest, in kind of a defensive fullback role. But like you guys say, a utility player who can be very valuable. And I think he would translate well to the Serie C. So I don't think he wouldn't be able to play at that level, or that's the issue. But it's like we said, there's not really that perspective to go anywhere meaningful after that. And there I see a better avenue somewhere like Romania, for example, or in one of those other surrounding countries like Hungary, or maybe not Poland yet, but Romania and Hungary, I think are two very interesting destinations for him.
Definitely, and yeah, in my opinion, the move to Italy is completely pointless. And I hope that he's surrounded by people, by intelligent people who will advise him good. And yeah, no Italy for Ermal Meta at this point. And just to finish, Mino, I have one last question. We've mentioned that Euro under 17 that will be hosted in Albania. And can you please, real quick, without like much description, tell us three players to watch from the Albanian under 17 team? They will have a very tough group because they will play against France, Germany, and Portugal. So yeah, it's definitely like the most difficult task. But can you please tell us three names to follow from this team?
Yes, the three players that I suggest is Durmishi, who plays for Juventus. I've seen also him live sometimes. He moves Juventus bought him 1 million euro from a club in Slovenia. Is Joka. He scored 3 goals against Azerbaijan. And Gabriel Kula. He has like 10 games and 11 goals with Albania under 17.
So okay, we got them: Jurmishi, Joka, and Kula. We'll
Yes.
definitely take a closer look even before the Euros. And as usual, I will make a list of players to watch just before the tournament on FTS. So Thank you so much for helping. It would be certainly helpful for me while making this post.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Mino, for coming on the podcast in general. It was an absolute pleasure, a very eye-opening one for a country that, me and Yase don't know too much about. So it's great to also learn for us in these conversations as well. And Mino, I'll let you have the last word. If there's anything you want to plug or let people know about, any social medias where people can follow you, feel free to shout it out now.
Yeah, thank you so much for your invitation. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed so much this podcast. And the main thing, I feel very proud and happy, like to be ambassador for Albania in this podcast and giving knowledge and information about the situation, the football, and the future of the football in Albania. And thank you so much again.